Hello subscribers and unsubscribers, and welcome back to ChäoS. It has been a fairly decent amount of time since I have recorded this. And as you guys know, I did try to, or at least those of you guys that follow me on social media, I did try to record this a couple weeks ago, but I ended up screwing up. I had the wrong audio codec selected, and so it caused it to not record any audio beyond like the first couple seconds, and even then it didn't actually record audio, although I had the audio track, but like I said, there was no actual audio there. Nonetheless, I'm going to go ahead and start a timer for 30 minutes because I don't quite have the time to go and do a longer episode. And I have to remember exactly which save I need to load up. So, okay, that was the end of the last... that was the end of my attempt at recording it. So, this is the save we actually want. And I don't quite remember which one of these two I selected. I think I selected the green when I tried recording this before, but I could be wrong. I also don't remember what I selected the last time before this, so I'm just gonna roll the dice. So 6, 5, 1. Okay, we're going with green. My breath caught. Come to think of it, I've been questioned by a pair of detectives before. I hadn't heard from them since then. Though they said they would guard the vicinity around my base, I hadn't picked up on anything of the sort. According to Misumi, they'd also come to investigate at school. Those two detectives. What had they been called? I couldn't remember their names. One second. I told those guys exactly what I witnessed at the scene of the staking incident, but thinking back over it now, I came to believe that they'd been looking at me with a blatant distrust. I had the feeling that the officer talking to the homeless man had just started to glance at me. Surely not. No, it was just my imagination. There was no way the police could possibly suspect me. After all, I hadn't killed anyone, and I was as harmless as a fly. For the moment, I might as well rest here a little longer. My pulse was still racing. As I aimlessly looked up at the night sky, I inhaled and exhaled shallow breaths. I didn't see any stars. The man-made lights blazing above ground made it seem as though Shibuya's sky was covered by a thin veil. It blocked out the starlight that had traveled for decades or centuries to get here, transforming the night sky into a faceless blackness. What a cheap-looking sky. But it was normal for Shibuya. To me, someone living in Shibuya, this was my sky. I returned my line of sight to the police officer. Doing so gave me a start. The officer was walking over this way. I'd better be careful not to meet his eyes. Standing up, I took a look at the road under the overhead bridge. Okay, this is actually a different route than what I ended up when I tried recording this before, which I'm fine with. Footsteps steadily approached me. In my heart, I prayed for him to pass me by. But...
Kimi!
He spoke. He was clearly referring to me.
ちょっといいか?
My heartbeat, which I'd been working on reining in the whole time, went wild again. This time because of my tension.
すいません。急いでるんで。
そうは見えないな。
Why had he spoken to me? I listed the possible reasons in my head. 1, because I'm alone in a place like this at night. 2, because I seem like a suspicious character. 3, because he's questioning everyone he comes across in the line of duty. 4, because the police view me as a suspect in the new gen cases.
身分を証明するもの。そうだな。生徒手帳を見せてくれないか?
Damn it. I didn't have the time to go along with this. I had to hide somewhere less conspicuous as soon as possible, otherwise Yuo would find me again. But if I ran away from the officer, I might get arrested for obstruction of justice. Worse still, if 4 on my list was the reason, running away would force me into an even more dire position. In any case, I had to be fast about getting this stuff with the police officer over with. I reluctantly took my student handbook out of my uniform's inner pocket and passed it over to the officer. Accepting it, he opened it up to confirm the name and headshot. Directly after, his countenance changed. His expression twitched. What was it? Why had he reacted like that? Why was my name that much of a problem? Maybe I was being made the new-gen suspect after all. But that was the police's misunderstanding. I hadn't done it. You had decided I was the murderer. I simply wasn't aware of it myself. Impossible. I'm not a sleepwalker. I don't have multiple personalities. I've had enough people screwing around with me.
ありがとう。
Unexpectedly, the police officer returned my student handbook right away. And swiftly, as though he were fleeing me, he headed back toward the park. There was something suggestive about his attitude. I had an amazingly bad feeling about this. Was I, really, an object of suspicion? I stared at the officer from behind. He gave a little nod to the older man sitting on the bench, or so it seemed. Strange. Was I imagining things? But he had definitely looked in the direction of the guy on the bench. I couldn't determine whether he had actually lowered his head or had simply seemed to do so. The police officer went on his way out of the park. The geezer on the bench went on messing around with his cell phone, or so it appeared. But his fingers weren't moving, or at least they appeared not to be. It was dark, making it hard to tell either way. Normally, the phone's LCD display would give off some light, but the older guy's hands remained shadowed. Something was strange. I began paying careful attention to the other people in the park. One of the homeless men was sitting apart from the rest at the base of a big tree. He didn't move an inch, he had a weird signboard with him, but his face had been pointing down the whole time. The 3 homeless who were in front of a shed covered by a tarp didn't appear to be having much of a conversation. All they did was sit there in a circle. One of them put a hand to his mouth. He covered his mouth with the end of his sleeves, and his hand in a manner that looked almost deliberate, or so it appeared. I couldn't tell for sure, but it was strange. A peculiar tension floated in the air of this park, though even that might have been a figment of my imagination. Don't tell me. Every single person here is an undercover detective or something. I shuddered when that vision rose in my head. I desperately told myself that in the end, it was only a delusion. But, in any case, I didn't want to stay here any longer. I'll escape. I started running. I crossed the bridge, reaching the stairs that led down to Meiji Avenue. I stopped right in front of them and looked back at the park. The older man from the bench had stood up. None of the others were moving. The geezer's body was facing my direction, but he had turned his face off to the side. He was beginning to walk this way. I sensed that his pace seemed a little fast. He was chasing me. That geezer was a detective. His stature looked awfully brawny to boot. I couldn't tell what his occupation was to begin with. His outward appearance made it impossible to come up with a guess. That alone wasn't enough to let me determine whether or not he was a detective. No, he was a detective. He was obviously a detective. He was tailing me. I'd be in deep crud if I stayed here. I ran down the stairs. Shit. To think that I'd be chased not just by you, but also by the police. On top of that, it wasn't my fault. I hadn't done a thing. Should I assert my innocence? But the fact of the matter was that I was fleeing the police right now. Besides, the police would probably come up with some random reason to attach a crime to my name anyway. They wouldn't believe a creepy otaku like me. I didn't have the room to think about what would become of me from here on out. I've got to escape from you and the police for now. That feeling alone seized control of my spirit. I went under the railroad overpass and climbed the stairs to the pedestrian bridge. There were a lot of people everywhere I went, blocking my path. It nearly made me think they were hostile toward me, that they were getting in my way on purpose. Everyone started to look like a detective. I was on the brink of panicking. When I turned around, I spotted someone running after me. I caught a glimpse of a figure cutting its way through the crowd in the same way as I had. It was one of the guys from the park. I didn't know which. Anyhow, they were chasing me. The thought of it made me go cold. My life would be all over if they caught me. I'd receive a death sentence for something I hadn't even done, then get stuck in prison for multiple decades. After I'd tasted my fill of a living hell, they'd finally tell me, "Alright, it's about time for you to die." Anything but that. I wouldn't be able to take it. I didn't want a life like that. Even if I managed to prove my innocence at the very end, the invincible brand of criminality wouldn't vanish from me. Everyone around me would be suspicious of me. Anything but that. I haven't done a thing. Upon entering a small road with virtually no other pedestrian traffic, I ran even more frantically. But because I'd been running almost the whole time since leaving At Cafe, I couldn't keep breathing. My lungs sought oxygen. My legs were shaky with exhaustion. Now the things that come to this, it was too late for me to regret not having exercised more. At least losing the ability to run, I halted in place and fell to my hands and knees. It was a familiar place. Or I was in a familiar place. Outer walls made of a distinctive red brick, a giant illuminated sign that said Gigants. I had come here once before, together with Masumi. At the time, I'd come to hear Phantasm perform live, or more accurately, to see their vocalist, FES. Now it was utterly quiet and empty of a human presence, and only the light of the vending machine in front of the building feebly illuminated the area. Irritated at how my breathing refused to go back to normal, I looked over my shoulder at the street I'd run down. A dim, narrow road. A train on the Tokyo-Yokohama line decelerated as it passed close overhead, and the light spilling out from its windows was particularly eye-catching, but even that illumination failed to reach the road directly below it. I squinted at the end of the street. Had I managed to shake off the police in Iwa? It was too dark for me to tell.
私についてきて。
The female voice that brushed my ear without warning made me scream pathetically and whirl around. The one standing there was FES, garbled in the flashy clothes that meant for her live shows. As she stood quietly in the darkness, looking down at me, her form lacked the erupting power it held on stage, and instead appeared ephemeral. Since it was dim, I couldn't scope out her expression. While I remained stupefied by surprise, FES quickly extended a hand toward me.
だって早く。
Her tone was disinterested. But she gave off the sense that she wouldn't let me say no. Still, holding out her hand, FES slowly turned her head and narrowed her eyes as if to see through the darkness.
逃げないと。
Why? Did she know I was fleeing Yua and the police? I was wary of her for a second, but right now she was literally offering me a helping hand. And so, I clutched at FES's hand. It was cool to the touch. As soon as I stood up, FES started running. In my state of irrecoverable exhaustion, nothing could have seemed more hateful. But if FES hadn't been there, I might have failed to stand up again and stayed there until the police caught up with me. If possible, I wanted to rehydrate, but I understood that we couldn't afford to do that. FES continued steadily, pulling at my hand. We entered narrow alleys and turned to countless intersections. I had absolutely no clue where I was running. Even under normal circumstances, I had little knowledge of the lay of the land in Shibuya. At this point, I had no choice but to go wherever FES took me. What if this too were a trap laid by Shogun? I started to think, but I shook my head to rid myself of such thoughts. Even if FES were working under Shogun, there was nothing I could do about it anymore. Lactic acid had built up in my feet, making them heavier, and my consciousness was wavering, as if running too much were keeping enough oxygen from reaching my brain. I was on the brink of whining things like, "I can't run anymore." Maybe I had unconsciously blurted out countless times already. Even so, FES devoted herself to continuing forward without looking back at me once. Before I knew it, we'd come out on a road with the Shuto Expressway running overhead. Though Shibuya Station was right in front of our eyes, there weren't many people around here. Without a moment's hesitation, FES began descending the stairs that led into a yawning underground opening. We stopped at last upon reaching the bottom of the stairs. Wheezing, I let go of FES's hand and sank into a crouch on the stairs. I wondered exactly how much I had run today. It might be the first time in my whole life that I'd performed so much physical activity. For some time, all that could be heard in the dim subway with its melancholy ambience was the sound of FES and I breathing. I looked up in the direction of the entrance we'd come down from, but I couldn't detect any pursuers. Did that mean we'd somehow managed to escape them? Even so, it was the first time I'd heard of this part of the subway. Plus, it should have been pretty close to the train station, but there wasn't a single person passing through. One of the fluorescent lights illuminating the tunnel was on the verge of dying out, and it busily blinked on and off. A smell like rotting garbage floated faintly in the air. It was the sort of place that symbolized Shibuya's underside. If someone attacked me here, my voice might not reach outside no matter how much I shouted. It wasn't a place I'd want to visit alone. As I went on breathing even harder, I took a peek at FES's profile. Okay, so considering that now after playing through this, I know that I selected red at the last choice, which means I selected green at this choice when I had recorded this, or when I had tried recording this a couple weeks ago. But since we ended up with green now at that last choice back in the park, we're gonna go with red. The charismatic diva of the indie music scene, who even now was making the young people of Shibuya go crazy about her, a person they called a prophetess. That FES was together with a gross otaku bastard like me. It felt kind of strange somehow. Sweat seeped out of her forehead and ran in droplets down her cheeks. She wiped it away with the flat of her hand. Every time she breathed, her chest rose and fell, peeking out of her camisole. A healthy sexiness lay hidden behind her atmosphere of enu. Or however the hell you pronounce it. Moe. No, that wasn't quite it. As I thought at first, sexy would be the most appropriate description if I were to put it into words. Mizumi had said this to me before, but FES had a great sense of style. She didn't stand out all that much in her uniform, but I really got it when I saw her in close-fitting clothes like this camisole. And she was tall, and she had a nice moderate bust, and an amazingly narrow waist. Most important of all were the legs jutting out of her miniskirt. Sleek and long, slender and firm. Like those of a model. A racing swimsuit would really suit a stylish girl like her. No, but wait a sec. A school swimsuit might work unexpectedly well, too. To see the cool FES wearing a school swimsuit. The gap between the two would push me over the edge. Hey, what kind of moronic stuff am I thinking at a time like this?
追われてたわね。
え、うん。
Okay, so seems to slightly differ because when selecting green it mentions more not school swimsuits and things, but rather her just wearing lingerie.
警察。
That's my timer, not the timer for this, but the timer to feed the dog. But this should be over relatively soon. Yua was also chasing... Oh, I don't even know if I read that last line. Oh well. Yua was also chasing me in addition to the police, but I was too exhausted to have any energy left to explain this.
私も同じ。
Eh? What was that supposed to mean?
私が書いた歌詞と、なんとかって呼ばれてる事件との関係について。だって。しつこく聞かれたわ。
New Gen. The lyrics FES had written and content of the sequence of cases matched up almost perfectly, which was why her fans were shouting those rumors from the rooftops that FES was a prophetess.
私、疑われてるみたい。
Or prophetess, or however the hell you pronounce it. As a new gen criminal? I'd been the same the first time I saw Phantasm's lyrics. To the point I'd wonder if FES were Shogun. But when I thought about the fact that she'd saved me, it made me guess that maybe things were a little different. Even so, why FES had been there? Her saving me had just been coincidental. Yeah, that's right. Considering that the club she performed at had been right in front of my eyes, she must have had a show today as well, after all.
君が追われてるのはなぜ？何か悪いことでもしたの？
チクられた。あの女、僕のことチクったんだ。ニュージェネの犯人にされる。
Yua was attempting to frame me. Damn it! Thanks to her and Shogun, my life was on the brink of destruction.
そう。容疑者候補ね。私たち。
How can you laugh about it?
僕は無実だ。
I grew overexcited and shouted. My voice echoed loudly through the subway tunnel, but I couldn't stop myself.
事件を目撃しただけだ。証拠品を勝手に持ち帰っちゃったけど、それだけ。僕殺してない。
それなら。
FES murmured, returning to her indifferent tone.
きっとそれは導きなのよ。大いなる存在による。
I'm with you on that one. Another mental patient? Another Holden Caulfield?
君の見たものが事実だったか幻だったかは些細なこと。
That brutal spectacle had been an illusion. Was that even a possibility? It seemed so very real.
君が今抱いている苦しみや怒りは必要なものだったということよ。
What was she saying? How disappointing. I'd sort of sensed it when I went to a concert, but FES really was quite the tinfoil hat type. They say geniuses and lovers are just a hair's width away from madness, but...
だから早く見つけて剣を見つけて。
My breath caught. Before this, when we met at school, FES had said to me, "Finding your sword will save you." FES had said this same thing before. What scared me far more than the police were Shogun and his underlings. I didn't know why, but they were clearly and maliciously attempting to set me up. What I needed to save myself from their menace was... What I needed to protect myself was...
理想度。
I think they got different music playing in the background now as well.
そうよ。
FES's lips contoured in the shape of a smile.
勉強したみたいね。
それなら手に入れた。
No, you got yourself on a piece of... your hands on a piece of junk.
僕は理想度を持ってる。今家に。
知ってるわ。
If she knew? How did she know?
見たから。君が渋谷のど真ん中を歩いていたの。大きなおもちゃを抱きしめて恥ずかしそうにしてたわね。
She was talking about the day I'd bought the D-sword. To think that FES had seen me. Now, hold on a sec. What did FES just said?
おもちゃ。
That smile had already vanished from FES's face. She gave me a short glance, then let out a light sigh. Her attitude was so listless, it seemed to make me feel insecure.
偽物だと思うわ。あなたの買った剣は。
I wasn't all that surprised. I could have predicted it. Compared to Zena's sword, the one I had bought was simply too cheap and didn't shine. Anyway, given that it was a sword so amazing that FES had claimed it would bring me salvation, the prospect of finding it being sold for 10,000 yen, along with other toys for grown-ups, was far too lacking in romance. Which is why I wasn't surprised. Instead, a tumultuous fury surged inside me. A fury at the glum-looking female clerk who deceived me. Fury at my pathetic self for being deceived. Fury at FES for insinuating this and that without giving me a clear answer.
じゃあ
I stood up and drew closer to FES. Something my normal self would have never been capable of, but right now I was desperate. Until a short while ago, I'd been exposed to the overwhelming terror of being pursued by Yua and the police. Not only that, I'd experienced countless unpleasant emotions over the short span of this past month. I'd had more than enough. In order to return to my peaceful lifestyle, I had to get my hands on a sword. No matter what.
教えてよ理想のどうやって手に入れるのか
Her expression stiffening, FES turned to face me again and said,
見て。
Okay. Although the music sounds like techno or something, and I gotta say, not a big fan of that. She deliberately thrust her right palm out in front of my eyes. Stopping me from coming any nearer, she curled her right hand into a fist. Well, not really a full fist, obviously, because you can't really grip a sword with a fist. When she swung it all the way behind her, together with the sound akin to that of glass shattering, cracks broke their way through empty space. Still nothing. My eyes went wide. I was speechless. Still nothing. FES focused on me without the slightest change in expression. I do feel as though somewhat the graphics should have been a little switched up here so it would fit a little better. A deep darkness spread out in the depths of the fissures in the broken space. This time FES whipped out the hand that lay buried between those fissures. In it, she gripped a colossal sword, and I think when they said that the glass shattered, I think that's when they probably should have started playing this. Or playing that animation there. It just feels as though it doesn't fit if they don't play it then. But I guess it'd have been hard to do that and include the dialogue.
そうだ
And depending on what we see in a little bit, that last little shot before the pan will probably be the thumbnail for this episode. The crevices in space instantly repaired themselves. The cracks vanished as though nothing had happened. It took mere seconds. Was this sleight of hand? Or another delusion? It was too distant from reality. I couldn't believe what had just occurred right before my eyes. This was pure fantasy, something from an anime.
この剣は命運を握るもの。
That sword was what FES had slashed around during a show. What I had mistaken for a mic stand. And its shape was almost reminiscent of a sci-fi anime battleship, and as I mentioned when I tried recording this a couple weeks ago, I can kind of see that. Front of the ship, have this be the bridge up here, or well, the conning tower, whatever the hell you want to call it. Bridge right up there, and then the actual tower up to the bridge, and then, yeah. So, I mean, I can kind of see that. It's a highly impractical battleship if you were to ever really try to use it, but I can see that comparison being reasonable.
この剣は嘆きを収束させたもの。
It possessed not a single straight line, yet brimmed with a sense of sharpness. And was lovely. And sinister.
この剣は超越した場所に干渉するためのもの。
It seemed as though my fingers would be vividly sliced off if I touched it.
超越した場所って。
FES's D sword. It fascinated me. And so I asked her without thinking,
異空間のようなもの。
a parallel world. Things were finally taking a firm toward the anime-esque.
同一次元上にある
Oh,
もう一つの可能性。
I was expecting to actually finish this before my timer went off, but my timer just went off. Another possibility existed. Oh, never mind, that's what she just said.
あるいは妄想。
A delusion?
言い方にあんまり意味はないわ。唯一確かなのはこの剣もその領域に存在しているということ。
So, in other words, the D-sword was the product of FES's delusions. The paranormal phenomenon I'd witnessed earlier had also been delusionary. It wasn't present in reality.
そんなのありえない。
そう。
If it were a delusion, how come I could see FES's sword right now?
言葉に引きずられてはダメよ。後ろを振り返ってみて。
Bewildered by FES's abrupt demand, I obeyed her. Behind me were the stairs, and there... FES stood there wearing a school swimsuit.
ああ、
There was an FES beside me, and there was another FES in front of the stairs. Well, technically they're both in front of the stairs. Two of the same human being were in this place. On top of that, one of them was clad in a school swimsuit. Becoming completely flustered, I looked back and forth between the two FESs over and over, and as you can tell, since there was mention of a school swimsuit earlier in here, as I mentioned the other choice, you talk about her being in lingerie rather than a school swimsuit, and thus, she shows up wearing just lingerie. From the shape of their faces to their stature and even their hairstyle, they were exactly the same. The only difference between them was their clothing and the fact that only one bore a sword. I wasn't at the level where you could mistake them for twins. They didn't merely resemble each other. They were one and the same. I was used to seeing girls wearing school swimsuits in Arrogate, but that didn't give me any room to settle down here. FES was standing in this filthy subway in a school swimsuit. Moreover, there was a name tag on her chest with Kishimoto written on it with a waterproof marker. The sheer improbability of the situation made my head go dizzy. Even if I kept to myself that I shouldn't look, my line of sight kept darting back toward her. It required a pretty big effort to lower my eyes and prevent myself from seeing her.
ごめん。
Before I knew it, I'd apologized. Because I had dreamed about it only a few minutes ago, but FES wearing a school swimsuit.
君が望んだ妄想よ。
Two FES spoke simultaneously, as though they had seen right through me. I flinched. I could tell my face was rapidly turning red. I had to make some kind of excuse. I had to distract her. Once 3D girls labeled me a pervert, it'd be the end for me. I'd undergo social obliteration. No, that was important too. But even more important was the question of what the hell was the phenomenon occurring currently before me. Okay, so that is going to be it for this episode. And I need to save over that, even though it's the same dialogue. We did make different choices, so I have to save over that so that we actually get the right ending, or at least we continue along the right path. But that's going to be it for this episode. As always, like, favorite, comment, subscribe, share, and I will see you guys next time. I will try in the future to go and do a longer episode to make up for the fact that I had... Essentially, this series had been unofficially on hiatus for a number of weeks. I think almost a month, in fact, before I had tried recording it a couple of weeks ago. And it was just because, well, I hadn't had the time to sit down and do it, so yeah. So like I said, I will try to make up for that. We'll see, though, if that ends up actually happening, of course. But I will see you guys next time, as I said. So goodbye and farewell.